Okay, hi again, it's Stevie again. I wanted to go into a little bit more depth concerning the physical evidence of glass in the sky. A lot of people, at first glance, they'll pretty much laugh me to shame, but if you look at the physical evidence, there's actually a glass layer in the sky about 70 miles high. In the Libyan desert in Egypt, there's been found fragments of yellow pieces of pure silica, well, almost pure silica, 98% pure silica, which is the highest natural silica content in the world. Scientists can't really put their finger on where it came from. Some think it's from a nuclear explosion that happened millions of years ago. Some think it's from the surrounding sand. Both those theories have holes in them. Reasonable explanation, if there was, philosophically speaking, if there was a layer of glass in the sky and a meteor crashed through it, basically the fragments would have just fallen down to the ground. And the pattern in the desert is an oval pattern. And however, there's no meteor crater within that oval. The nearest crater is, I think it's about 500 kilometers away. So theoretically speaking, if there was glass in the sky, a meteor could have skidded through it and caused these fragments of glass to fall to the ground. And basically, just like a diver going through water, the diver hits the plane of water and then he lands on the ground. So basically, if he comes in at an acute angle, which I think the meteor did, basically hit the glass up in the sky about 70 miles high, and the meteor landed in a different place, and the glass fragments landed in a separate place from the meteor landing. So basically, that is a feasible explanation, even though initially it might sound very strange to you. But if that is indeed glass in the sky, we know that it's yellow and has a high silicon content. Okay. One of the main proofs of glass in the sky is rainbow formulation, or halos, or glories, or circumzenith arcs, or sundogs, which all basically have to do with the refractive qualities of glass-divided light. Now, the conventional explanation of how rainbows were formed, scientists will they'll say that it's created by the raindrops in the atmosphere. Well, that's not correct. That's not correct at all. The raindrops in the atmosphere only act as the surface of projection of which the glass-divided light projects itself onto. It's just, if you take a prism, basically, and you shine white light through the prism, you'll get the spectrum. Well, that's what's going on in the sky. The sunlight, which is white light, is going through this glass plane and is dividing the light. And the light actually goes on a curve, too. And so the light is already divided into the spectrum. So the glass is already divided into the electromagnetic spectrum, and it is only projected onto the water droplets, which are very highly refractive. Same thing if you're holding a garden hose. It's the same concept. The garden hose spray is only the surface. It's not the source of the rainbow. This can be proven with a flashlight. Basically, a flashlight, if you hold a flashlight up to a piece of white paper in a dark room, you can get a rainbow effect. You can create a rainbow on the white piece of paper. There are no water droplets in the atmosphere to speak of. Basically, what's happening is the glass in the bulb is dividing the light and it's projecting it onto the paper. So that's how rainbows are created. Same concept goes with sundogs, with circumzenith arcs, with glories, with halos. It all has to do with the arc of the sun projecting through the glass in the sky, projecting onto the clouds. So the water droplets, they don't have choreographic intellect. They cannot, hey, brother, let's line ourselves up and let's form an arc. No, that's not what's going on. So now you know how rainbows are formed. There's glass in the sky. Okay, well, the glass in the sky can also be found through, you can look at fusion crusts on meteorites. Meteorites that fall to the ground, most meteorites are covered with a shell of burnt glass. Now, scientists will tell you that the silica came from the rock itself, but that's not physically possible. There would be a gradual tapering effect of the glass, from it forming from a pure glass from the outside to like a glass rock composite as it gradually gets through. But no, the glass shell, it's almost like the glass shell of the meteorite. It's almost like it's just like a shell. It's basically like a chocolate covered peanut. It's like it's dipped into something. So the meteorite melted through, skidded through heat friction, and burned through the glass, and it got encapsulated by the glass in the sky. It got burned. Okay, next I want to talk to you about tektites. Most of you probably don't know what tektites are. Tektites are molten pieces of glass that have penetrated through the atmosphere. They are mostly have an aerodynamic shape to them. Some are in the shape of buttons, but it's mainly burnt glass, and it has a very high silica content, along with some alumine metals as well. But basically, scientists cannot figure where the origin of tektites came from. Some think they are from outer space, extraterrestrial. Some think that they're from the ground, from the terrestrial obsidian layer underneath the ground. Both those theories have severe faults in them. For one thing, tektites don't have any cosmic ray exposure, so it cannot come from above the atmosphere. It also has no similarities to moon rocks. Some people think that they came from the moon. As far as the terrestrial explanation, basically what would have to happen was a meteorite would have to hit the ground and have to make such a severe impact crater that the meteor would have to sink deep down into the ground and have to be hot enough to liquefy obsidian glass way underneath the ground. First of all, meteors that hit the ground are not that hot because they've cooled off into the atmosphere. So basically, they would have to liquefy this glass and then have to propel this liquefied glass up into the air and shoot it at least 500 miles away from the crater because there's no impact craters near tektite fields. So that's out of the question. A much easier explanation is that the tektites came from the sky. The meteor skidded across the glass sky, and it covered itself with fusion crust, and it brought in with it molten globules of tektites. Very simple. Okay, next I want to talk to you about auroras. Auroras, scientists say, well, they can't really figure out why they happen, but they kind of can give you like a semi-explanation. And they give the analogy of a TV tube, like an old TV tube, where you have in the back of the tube you have the electron gun, and it's spitting or shooting positively charged electrons, or negatively, onto the phosphorus-coated glass screen, and it causes the glass to glow. And that's what's happening in the sky. The electrons from the sun are penetrating and they're hitting the glass in the sky, and it's causing the glass to glow. There's phosphorus in the atmosphere as well, and that's what causes auroras. It's just like a plasma ball. If you touch the glass in the plasma ball, well, the electrons from your hands are interacting with the plasma inside the glass, the vacuum tube glass, and it's causing a glowing effect. So that's how auroras happen. Another proof of glass in the sky is ham radio waves. Ham radio waves are compared to, they compare the ionosphere as a sheet of glass, which refracts the radio waves and it bounces them to the other side of the Earth. Well, yeah, there is glass in the sky, and it causes the ham radio waves to reach the other side of the Earth. Okay, next I want to talk about ozone generation, how the glass plays into the creation of the O3 molecules in ozone. You know that fresh scent that you smell after a thunderstorm sometimes? Well, that's created, that same scent is replicated with air ionizers in glass plates. Basically, the oxygen is created, the ozone is created, and it goes through the glass plate and it creates that fresh scent. Well, that's another proof that there's glass in the sky. Another proof is just the greenhouse effect. I mean, they call it the greenhouse gas effect, but it's more likely the greenhouse glass effect, where the heat is trapped. I mean, basically, just like you're shining sunlight through a glass window and it traps in the infrared heat. There's glass in the sky. UV protection, UV block. Glass blocks ultraviolet light. Well, yeah, of course. The atmosphere is made out of glass. The moon illusion, the sun illusion at the horizons, it all has to do with the refraction of glass. That's why it appears big at the horizons and it's small at the zenith. It's because the glass tricks our eyes. Another proof that there's glass in the sky, which I'll get into detail later about the moon, the actual physical structure of the moon is not spherical. The moon is actually bowl-shaped, and you can watch one of my videos showing that. But the moon, the terminator line, if you look at the moon, the terminator line, which is that shadow line that's created, where you see the crescent of the moon, the line is crisp. The shadow line is very crisp. Now, I'm a 3D artist, and I deal a lot with spheres and shadows and lighting and stuff like that. So basically, if you shine a light onto a spherical object, you'll get a shadow, but it won't be crisp. It'll be graduated. It'll be, very gradual. But if you shine it into a bowl, in a bowl-shaped object which has a defined rim, you will get a crisp shadow line. Now, the glass in the sky, it actually flips the terminator line of the moon. Just like if you were looking through a telescope and you see through the glass lens actually flips the moon. Well, that's what's going on in the sky. The glass actually flips the terminator line. Another proof of glass in the sky. How did the glass get there? That's a good question. Well, if you understand, biblically speaking, that there was a global flood, and the waters did come from up above, basically there's a celestial sphere up in the middle of the earth that covers the New Jerusalem, the Great Pyramid up in the sky. You can't see that because it's darkened by the celestial sphere. But there's water inside the sphere. And this water gushed forth at one time. The windows, glass of heaven, were open, and the water gushed forth and filled the earth. Now remember, the earth is concave, so the glass is inside the earth. So essentially, the glass came out with the water, the sand. So the sand came out with the water when the global flood happened. The sand particles stayed up in the atmosphere, and in the ionosphere, where there was electricity happening, these sand particles, they fused together, and they created a hard glass bubble, a glass shell. Okay? Now you might ask, okay, well, the space shuttle, how does that get through the glass, if there's glass up in the sky? Well, the space shuttle has a flush bottom, and the space shuttle is covered with tiles, heat-resistant tiles that are covered in frit. Frit is dichroic glass, which has a higher melting point than normal glass. So basically, the space shuttle actually uses heat friction, and it slides against the glass, and it gets hot enough where it actually melts through the glass. It doesn't have to penetrate the glass like rockets do, like the tips of rockets when they try to launch satellites. That's how they launch satellites into the inner space, I call it. They penetrate the glass. They shoot holes through the glass, and then that's how they launch their satellites. So the glass is there. NASA doesn't tell you about it, but it's there, and they know it's there. And also, since the glass is actually yellow, because we see traces of it at the Libyan Desert, hence the sky is actually yellow, and because there's phosphorus in the atmosphere, it inverts the yellow color into blue. So that's why the sky is blue, because the phosphorus in the atmosphere inverts the color from yellow to blue. So you can listen to songs. That's the song "Mellow Yellow" by Donovan. That's all about the glass in the sky. It's 14 inches thick. It's born high, forever to fly. Wind velocity nil. Electrical banana. He's talking about the ionosphere. You can listen to "Inside Out" by Bob Dylan and what's that one group? I forgot their name. The Traveling Wilburys. It all has to do with glass in the sky. And because there's glass in the sky, if you look back into Genesis 9:13, where God promised Noah never to flood the earth again, well, that's physical. The rainbow is a physical token that the earth will never flood again. Because, like I told you before in my previous video, where the earth is a pressurized container. Okay. Well, the glass actually pressurized the earth even more, the ocean waters. Okay, so basically after the flood happened, there's pressure, but there's not as much pressure. Once the glass stretched out and pushed the ocean water down. So when God says, look up in the sky, see the rainbow, there's proof I'm never going to flood the earth again. That's what he's saying. He's saying the rainbow is a direct result of glass, which will not allow the waters to rise above the continents. Okay? There's a lot of biblical references to glass in the sky. And that's how I figured out there was glass in the sky, is by reading the Bible. Jeremiah 5:21 and 22 talks about the sand that keeps the ocean waters at bay, that they can't rise over the land. Well, we know that hurricanes and tidal waves rise over the land, but he's talking about a different kind of sand, a molten sand. That we have eyes but we can't see, we have ears but we can't hear. Psalm 104:9, thou hast placed a bound that the waters cannot rise above it. Job 37:18, hast thou with him stretched out the sky, which is strong as a molten looking glass. 1 Corinthians 13:12, for now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. It's all about glass. It's glass in the sky, basically. It is there, folks, and we just can't see it with our eyes, but it is there. I've debated physicists from MIT through my email, people from Lancaster, from Cambridge University, physicists, professors. They have nothing to say against me. Basically, they're embarrassed. And in turn, I choose to embarrass them publicly for their hypocrisy, because the scientific method is all about judging the physical, objectively judging the physical evidence, which they fail to do. They choose to subjectively ignore me, and they use philosophical arguments. Well, nobody believes you, so how could it be true? Well, that's not science, folks. Science is what I just told you. I've given you ample evidence of glass in the sky. Okay, the reason why people don't believe that there is glass in the sky, that's a different subject. It has to do with who really controls the world, which is the Zionists and the bankers. And it's all about money. It's about making money. It's about loving money. It's not about loving God. You can either love God or you can love money. Okay. The truth is, the earth is inverted. There's glass in the sky. The moon is bowl-shaped. The lie is what the Zionists, the Jews, have caused you to believe. They own Hollywood. They own the banks. They all own the media, the news, and they propel the lies. Okay, I'm here to tell you the truth. I am God.